My name is Erin Smithers. I'm the director of the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project. You are here with our Stay Healthy at Home webinar series. We have a webinar every Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m. on a different topic. The first Tuesday of the month is a brand new topic, and then we replay all of our informative and resourceful webinars from years past the rest of the Tuesdays. All of our webinars can be found online as well on our website. Bianca, Frankie, and myself will be here to monitor the chat. If anybody is having any sort of technical issues, audio issues, video issues, feel free to put your issue in the chat box and we can help work through that. And if you have any other questions, again, you can use the chat box or the Q&A. You should be able to enable captioning should you need it as well as a transcript on the side of your screen. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for today. We are joined with Colleen Collick. She's the director of Project Hire at the ARC of New Jersey. Colleen has worked in Project Hire for the last 17 years of her career. Project Hire is a supported employment program designed to connect people with disabilities to integrative employment opportunities in their community. Colleen truly believes that all individuals benefit from having the opportunity to earn competitive wages in the community. And today will mark the last in our series of the programs with the ARC of New Jersey. So we're very excited to have you here today, Colleen. Thank you so much for talking about your program, Project Hire.
Okay, so like Erin said, my name is Colleen Collick. I am the director at Project Hire. Project Hire's mission is to promote the abilities of individuals through full-time and part-time integrated employment in the community, to develop and sustain a natural on-the-job support network for the employee, to help the employee in reaching their fullest potential and aspirations through career counseling, to assist employers in diversifying their workforce while hiring qualified individuals to do the job, and to assist the employer in reducing their cost of hiring and retaining employees. So the ARC of New Jersey's Project Hire Supported Employment Program is designed to connect people with disabilities to integrated employment opportunities in their community. This picture shows one of our associates who was just offered Employee of the Month. He's been working at Wawa for several years now, and was very excited to get this special award. The program assists adults with disabilities in finding and maintaining competitive employment. Our program also assists middle and high school students with their preparation and transition to adult life with its School to Work program. Project Hire started in 1985 as one of the very first supported employment programs in New Jersey. Program services include vocational assessments, job matching, job sampling, on-site job training, travel training, and follow-along services. Project Hire aims to assist individuals in obtaining and maintaining competitive, independent community employment. Through securing a competitive, independent job, Project Hire aims to assist individuals in obtaining and maintaining competitive, independent community employment. So competitive, independent community employment is fair work, fair pay, positions in which the participant has a position that is of value to the employer and is compensated in the same way as any other individual working for the employer. The participants in our program gain dignity, independence, self-determination, and the opportunity to participate in society at the same level as any other citizen in his or her community. Project Hire has different service types. We offer typically falls under one of our three main funder sources. So we have different service types and different funders that support our program. The first one is the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services, also known as DVRS. The second is the Division of Developmental Disabilities, also known as DDD. And the third is our School Transition Services. So, DVRS adult services usually begin project hire at the pre-placement level. Once they obtain employment, they are moved into the intensive, and once stabilized on the job, they're moved into follow along and eventually graduated into our fade out program before they actually leave. This means that an individual has successfully maintained their employment. They are able to do this position on their own, and they no longer require support from the job coach, and we graduate them from services. So pre-placement. These services help the participant to learn skills that improve his or her chances of obtaining employment. Pre-placement also includes the job search activities rendered by the job developer that are required to obtain competitive employment in the community. So typically, this is the first phase in adult services for a DVRS participant. This means that they're looking for work, they need help building a resume, interview skills, and doing mock interviews. They work one-on-one with a job developer during this time period, and they can meet weekly or biweekly depending on the schedules of both the participant and the job developer. The next phase is called an intensive phase. This is when the participant obtains employment. Intensive services are usually needed. This refers to the hours used at the outset of a new job. So job coaches are expected to use as many hours as needed to help facilitate a smooth hire. These intensive assignments usually take high priority for our coaches that are assigned. And then follow along. These visits are provided by the job coach at a minimum of one visit to the job site per month to continue ongoing training. So anyone who is getting DBRS long-term follow-along supports are given 3 hours a month of support. So that could be 4 45-minute appointments in the month. It could be 3 1-hour appointments. It could be 2 1.5-hour appointments. So they just need a minimum amount of support in order to continue to be stable at their job. Whereas in the intensive phase, the individual is just learning how to do the job. So the job coach is present much more often. Restabilization. So this occurs when a participant who was previously stable and receiving those 3 hours of long-term follow-along support, and now they've encountered an issue where they need to be restabilized at the job. This could be a new manager. They could have been transferred to a new location. And the job coach can then work with the individual more intensely for a short period of time. It's usually 3 to 6 months to get them restable at their position. And then they can go back into the long-term follow-along phase for 3 hours a month. Another service that we do is TWE. It's called the Trial Work Experience. This program helps the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services determine if a participant is employable in the community. Project Hire's role is to observe participants in a variety of work settings and provide detailed reports on how the participant does in certain situations outlined by the referring case manager. So we have an individual who might come to an office to see if they can do filing and Excel spreadsheets, and then they might go to a restaurant to see if they're able to greet members and properly seat them at the host stand. And then a third option might be at a retail store to see if they like stocking the shelves or hanging clothes. The idea of the trial work experience is to go to 3 different settings and perform an evaluation at each one. So the job coach would again be present for 100% of this evaluation. They go to each site, they type out a report, and then send it to the assigned DVRS counselor to determine if the individual is ready to start in the pre-placement phase. So the TWE is done prior to a pre-placement voucher. Another major funding source for Project Hire is the Division of Developmental Disabilities. Services paid for by DDD most often are used for follow-along purposes after individuals referred from DVRS are stable on the job and require a minimum job coach interaction. DVRS and DDD have a memorandum of understanding, which just means that they should use, if they are eligible for both DVRS and DDD services, they should use DVRS for pre-placement and intensive services, and then switch their long-term supports to their DDD budget. Medicaid funded referrals these referrals come from DDD support coordinators. So in DVRS, they are called voc rehab counselors. In DDD, they are called support coordinators. And the support coordinator is really coordinates the entire plan for the participant. These plans are individualized and can include career planning or supported employment services. Self-directed day services, or SDDS. These participants and their families and guardians are directly involved in how their DDD budget is distributed. The amount of hours and types of services are determined by a plan made by the family, and it is required that hours services are agreed upon by the participant and the designated guardian. This occurs through a signature of a monthly document outlining the services rendered. So if you are a self-directed day service individual, you would sign off on the hours that a job coach was present for the entire month, and then that gets submitted for payment. Project Hire offers transition services for students in the New Jersey school system. These services aim to prepare students for the workforce after graduation, usually starting with basic exploration of interest and aptitude and completing with more comprehensive job sampling experience. School contracts are highly individualized and will differ depending on the student and the school district. There are different types of assessments for transition services. The first one is called community-based assessments. This is a documented assessment of the student's interest and aptitude using locations in the community. So again, they would go to a variety of sites and really assess what areas they excelled in, which ones they really didn't prefer. The next topic in transition services is life skills. Students learn life skills such as banking, customer service, grocery shopping with the help of a Project Hire job coach in the community and sometimes in the classroom. A common lesson might be to compile a grocery list and then walk to the grocery store safely, shop for the items on the grocery list, and then return back to the school to see if they were able to make the list, follow the list, safely cross the street, and then bring the items back to the classroom. And then the third type of transition services is called job sampling. This is when participants experience real work settings and are given the opportunity to work with a supervisor to complete real tasks that are required by employers in the community. This is completed under the supervision of a Project Hire job coach. Anytime a student is in the transition service program, a job coach is with them 100% of the time. Project Search is a collaborative program that utilizes many funding sources to provide a selected group of students living with disabilities in a unique vocational experience as a substitute for his or her final year in high school. In this program, students are given intensive internships, employment readiness skills, and job skills training. These services are housed within a private company that partners with Project Search funders. The intended outcome is to train students in positions offered by the partner company and obtain employment after graduation. This is our 5th year for Project Search at a local hospital that we are partnered with. We currently have 8 interns who are in the program, and they are due to start their first round of rotation next week. Individuals complete 3 rounds of rotation in the hospital. They usually have some type of assessment to determine what area of the hospital they would be interested in going to. We've had interns who have gone to the patrol department to check the security cameras. We have had individuals in the oncology department. We've had individuals in the gift shop, in the cafeteria, in transport, anywhere in the hospital that student has expressed interest, they get to go to an internship. Typically, the internship lasts 8 weeks, and they do 3 rounds of that. They don't usually go to the same internship twice. The program is made so that they get an experience in different areas of the hospital so they can really determine where they would like to go after work. Once they have completed their 3 rounds of internships, there is a graduation ceremony, and then a referral is created for Project Hire, and then Project Hire assigns a job coach to each one of the graduating interns. They enter our adult program, and then we assist them in finding employment intensively being trained on that employment, and finally getting into the long-term follow-along phase when they're as independent as possible. The next program is called CPE. It's a career pathway evaluation. This program is currently in its pilot phase. It has been going on for 1 year, and they have just extended it for 1 year. There are only 3 DBRS offices that are offering it, one in Central, one in Northern, and one in Southern. Project Hire was the selected vendor for the Central location. So this service is a more intense evaluation for individuals who may be better served by an alternate approach to traditional evaluation methods. The CPE is a collaborative effort that affords as a job coach and the consumer the opportunity to identify vocational interests, skills, and attributes that will lead to successful vocational planning. These services take place in the home, the community, in competitive integrated employment settings. And ideally, this evaluation takes about 9 weeks from start to finish. There are interviews involved where the participant will give the job coach 2 people that they would like to interview to get to know them a little bit better. The job coach would go to the individual's house and observe them either cook a meal or do a load of laundry to see what skills they are able to do, how many directions they're able to follow at one time, um, and what are some of their likes and dislikes. One of the features that helps Project Hire stand out in New Jersey is our supported employment service model. Explaining where participants are in our service model will help contextualize services and simplify the program for our participants and their families. Participants of Project Hire are always going to be in one of the 3 stages of obtaining his or her vocational goal. Services are administered by one of 2 separate Project Hire staff members. They are the coordinator of employment services, or they are called employment training specialists. Project Hire has 2 primary field positions who are supervised by one of the assistant directors. The first one is called the coordinator of employment services. This role really leads mainly during the job search process and the initial hire. This could be as straightforward as simply looking for work, or more abstractly when completing different exploration activities or other assessments. Coordinators usually assist at the beginning of new placements because they have established a relationship with the employer. Coordinators lead the services during the early stages of services, and once stabilized, they are then transferred the case to an ETS. Employment training specialist, also referred to as ETS. This position is much more focused on skills and acclimation to the work environment. ETSs will be working most often with participants who are already employed. They can complete the intensive work if needed at the start of the new job, and in most cases, provide long-term support if needed. So the coordinator usually does the intake. They do all of the job search activities, whether that's build a resume, set up mock interviews, and then negotiate with the employer on the job description and any reasonable accommodations that need to be made. And then they're usually there on the first day of orientation to ensure that relationship and natural supports are put in place for the participant. And then once that happens, the coordinator transfers the case to an ETS, and they really then take on making sure the individual is able to learn the job functions and complete job tasks in a timely and efficient manner. So there are usually 3 stages of a vocational goal. The first stage is seeking employment. This phase is most often administered by a job developer or the coordinator. Project Hire assists with resume, cover letter creation, interview preparation, application completion, inquiries with employers, and assistance looking for opportunities. So although Project Hire has a lot of employers that we have a wonderful relationship with, each individual in our program still has to complete the application for the place of employment that they would like to be hired at. So if that's Panera Bread, they do have to complete the application. If it's McDonald's, if it's a law office, the application is usually the first step in the job seeking process. And then the second stage is called the intensive support. So once a position is accepted by the participant, Assistance is usually needed for the initial hiring, orientation, and training process. This is usually started by the coordinator, and then services are transitioned into the job coach or ETS. The third and final stage is usually the long-term support. When the participant becomes stable on the job, the intensive support is reduced, and if eligible, the participant is able to receive long-term support. This is usually about 3 hours per month and eventually faded completely once the individual is graduated from services. So seeking employment. This is the scope of the employment. So appointments take place in the participant's community at any time. Appointments are scheduled according to the participant's need and availability. Staff will assist with the application for any position that the participant is interested in and has the aptitude for. Staff will work as diligently as possible to obtain competitive employment in the community, and then travel training on how to use apps like Uber and Lyft, as well as learning the bus and the train lines. So here's some of our limits of our program. Appointments do not have to take place in the participant's home, but can be anywhere easily accessed by the participant. The goal of our program is to get individuals out in the community as much as possible. So that's why it's important that we don't go into someone's home. We want to make sure that the participant is willing and able to go to a McDonald's to meet the job developer or job coach, or the local library or a coffee shop, somewhere that proves that they are able and willing to participate in our program. Positions that are highly competitive or will take much longer to obtain. So this is important. If sometimes an individual wants, they may have a higher degree or really wants a more challenging position. So sometimes it just takes a little bit longer. Not to say that it doesn't happen, it just may take longer than a position at a local grocery store. Project hire staff are not required or funded to drive participants to interviews. That is one accommodation we do make. If you are called for an interview on the next day and you're not able to set up your access link or any types of transportation, Project Hire's team member will make an accommodation and drive you to the interview, because we never want that opportunity to be missed. And then in the future, we would then train on a backup transportation like Uber or Lyft or the local bus line or train, depending on your area. New hires take priority, and staff will do their best to be present as many hours as needed. So when someone is just offered a job, it's really important for a project hire team member to be at that orientation and onboarding day. So we're going to do everything in our power to ensure that someone from the project hire team is there. Staff will work with new hires to gain skills to help them work independently from the job coach or developer. Staff will work with employers to help define job expectations and promote retention by the participants of these expectations. Participants will be assisted by the project hire staff in selecting appropriate transportation to work. Travel training is possible in some circumstances and in some counties, depending on where you live. We can never promise to be there 100% of the time. They're not always alternates, and support will not be funded for a long capacity. So part of becoming independent is having the opportunity to work independently. Again, our goal is to make you as competitive, in a competitive integrated employment as possible. So we do want to make sure that the individual is able to do some portion of their job independently, and then we're working towards increasing that independence week after week. And then for long-term support, the scope of our program is that project hire staff will continue to support the individual as long as services are funded and needed. Project hire staff will work to provide coverage when staff are unavailable. If new issues arise, project hire will work with the funding sources to provide extra assistance and hours. If desired, staff can work with participants to grow within his or her own employer. So if you're looking to advance at your position, that's another reason where a project hire team member could be there. And then if desired, staff can work with participants and employers to adjust schedules, availability, and scheduled hours. Project hire reports all activities and detailed funding source audits. Activities that we are providing must also meet our funding sources manual and standard. So it's really important that the project hire team does their documentation. Coverage is not always possible. We are not funded to have any alternates. So if someone is sick or ill, it is very hard to find that coverage. Most of the counties that we service have multiple staff members in it, so there is some flexibility there. And then we just try to prioritize based on intensives, interviews, and long-term follow-along cases. The reason we ask about enrollment in DDD on our intake form is because this will determine how long-term services are funded. So like I mentioned before, DVRS and DDD have a memorandum of understanding that pre-placement comes from DVRS and the long-term supports comes from an individual's DDD budget. So it's important for us to know this as soon as possible so that we know who to notify for what service that's being provided. DDD and DVRS have an agreement that the initial pre-placement and intensive activities are funded at the local office. Each county has a local DVRS office, and then if the individual qualifies for services, and then once DVRS funding for these activities are no longer needed or they've been exhausted, DDD funding can then pick up and provide the long-term follow-along supports. So this is DVRS versus DDD. And DVRS is paid for by New Jersey. They're usually the primary funder for pre-placement services. So that's anybody looking for work. Intensive services. So that's stabilization on the job, learning the job right after you've been newly hired. Special programs like TWE and PREETs. And then long-term follow-along. This only applies if the individual does not qualify for DDD services. This is monitored by the central DVRS office and does not have a primary counselor. DDD is paid for by a predetermined budget in Medicaid. They are usually the secondary funder, but they must be ineligible for DVRS first. So if someone is ineligible for DVRS, they can go to DDD per pre-vocational training, which is work readiness skills, any career planning, which is looking for work, and any type of supported employment services. They are the primary funder if DDD eligible for long-term supported employment, community-based supports, and other services determined by Medicaid. So when a participant qualifies for DDD, they have access to different services for the long term. As far as supported employment, the main services that impact what we do are supported employment. This is coaching support used for an attainment for independence on the job. Community-based supports are also paid by DDD. It's not a program that Project Hire offers, but it is a service that DDD does offer. This is a one-on-one support in the community. And then personal aid services, anybody who needs help going to the bathroom, medication administration, and any behavior adjustments. If needs besides supported employment are needed, make sure that you can address those with your support coordinator, and a Project Hire team members can definitely counsel you on who to go to and where to go. For some individuals, it's appropriate to utilize other services while working. Remember, everyone is employable with the right supports, and DDD can provide these in some circumstances. In our new supports program, it's possible to have both supported employment and community-based supports while on the job, and knowing where supported employment ends and community supports begin is really important. So some examples of supported employment, we're obtaining independent employment. We want to increase independence over time. We do this through job coaching, counseling, training, guidance, tool creation, jigs, advocacy, communication with management, focus on job tasks, and integration in the community. We are intended to fade over time. The long term should be 3 to 4 hours monthly on average. There are some individuals who need more or less. So again, it just depends on the individual and what supports they need. It's a minimum of 1 visit per month. It's designed to be drop-in nature and then usually not rigidly scheduled. We must also follow the Medicaid guidelines. And then a community-based support is assistance with activities of daily living. So they complete tasks for participants to achieve independence. This is scheduled, one-on-one assistance. There can be self-care, social skills, ADLs, 100% verbal prompting, redirection. If the participant cannot do independently, not intended to be faded, but enhance their level of independence, that's when a community-based support would be needed. Really, the goal of supported employment is to obtain independent employment. These are just some of the programs that Project Hire does. We do a pre-ETS program, which starts as early as age 14. That is the youngest participant age group that we serve. Job development means that the individual is looking for work. Intensive coaching is when an individual is learning the job after just being hired. Follow-along supports are limited hours with a minimum amount of supports. A trial work experience is a type of evaluation that's done out in the community to assess somebody's interests and experiences. Benefits counseling. This is if someone needs assistance with their Medicaid, making sure they're Medicaid eligible, if they get SSI benefits or SSDI benefits, how many hours they can work without those benefits being impacted. We do currently have 3 benefits counselors on our team. We do student transition services. We have our project search at Overlook Medical Center in Summit, and we are currently doing our career pathway evaluation with the New Brunswick office for DBRS. And here is my contact information. This is my direct line and my email address.